He has spoken on the topics faith, family and freedom in Cuba, Belgium, Brazil, Congo, UK and all over the USA to crowds from 14 to 40,000. International leadership speaker, trainer and coach. Author of Learn to Raw Leadership, Attitude Hack, Live a More Excellent Life, 5 Battle Strategies of a Victorious Warrior. 2021 President's Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Founding partner of the John Maxwell team. Toastmaster International Speech Competition semi-finalist. Founder of Tell It Like It Is TV, ThatGuyRocks.com and ThatGuySpeaks.com. Creator of Story Power TV, Transforming Grace TV, and Leading Leaders Podcast. Producer of 4 TV programs and podcasts for Liftable TV and World Trumpet Television as well as multiple social media channels. Please help me welcome J. Loren Norris.
You know, I remember when they looked at me, the little crowd of them, and they said, you didn't see anything, did you? In fact, what did you see? Tell me what you saw. And I knew that there was an answer that they expected me to give. And I knew that there was an answer that was right. I also knew that those two answers were not the same. When cancel culture comes calling for you, will you lead or will you capitulate? That's what I want to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.
I'm J. Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and I think I was probably about 12 when my friends decided to get into some stuff they weren't supposed to get into. The first time it happened, I believe we all decided to put the coach's car, he had a little tiny Opel GT, up on the one hump in the sidewalk where the tree roots had grown under. And because the tree had pushed a nice little mountain of sidewalk up that was probably 18 inches high, we football players were big enough, even in middle school, to pick it up and put the car on top of the block. Yeah, we were 8th graders, 7th and 8th graders. And we picked up his car and we balanced it, high-centered it on the concrete. And then we all looked at each other like, maybe that was a bad idea. Nobody asked what damage could it do. Nobody asked, what kind of things underneath the car could be in trouble. Nobody asked the question, what if he leaves at the end of the day and there's nobody here to help him get it off of there? But we all looked at each other, and the ringleader, I don't remember which one of us it was at that point, I know it wasn't me, but I was involved, said, you didn't see anything, right? I mean, tell me what you saw. And everybody started laughing because everybody knew what the gig was. Everybody knew the answer was, I saw nothing. Colonel Klink, I see nothing, I hear nothing, I know nothing, like the 3 monkeys, right? I don't know what's going on. I wasn't here when it happened. You can't prove anything, Bart Simpson. But the truth was, everybody involved knew that what they did was wrong, and that if they got caught doing it, there'd be some paddles involved. Back in the day, Coach had the biggest paddle on campus. He also had the one other weapon for those of us in football. I believe he said something along the lines of, so you think you're strong now? Let's see how strong you are. And by the time we were done running and push-upping and running and push-upping and running and push-upping and running and push-upping, about half of us lost our lunch. Coach's revenge? Perhaps. But let me go back to the same question that we were asked, that I was asked. For lack of a better term, the culture war that we find ourselves in on every angle is that there are some ringleaders and some bullies who have some very strong notions of how they want things to be, how things are, how things ought to be. And the challenge that we have with them is that, well, they kind of get to decide what you saw. Because if what you saw was not what they wanted you to see, or if what you actually saw is not what you're allowed to tell anybody, there's going to be a problem. You might be wondering why all this stuff is coming out in the news about UFOs right now. We've been talking about that for, close to 100 years, right? At least 80 years we've talked about this technology that apparently showed up in the deserts near Roswell, but nobody's been talking about it. Is that because so many people knew nothing? Or because those who knew made sure you didn't know? It really is ironic, though, the process of keeping a secret. It seems like the bigger the secret, the bigger the lie needed to hide it. Ironically, the more people there are involved in hiding it. The bigger the deception, the more people have to rally around the deception to make it seem like truth. Yep. Unfortunately, it happens in almost every sphere of our lives today. And I'll tell you the most dangerous ones. Anywhere there's money involved. And I mean that on both sides. If there's a way to lie about something to create the illusion, to make people believe something that isn't true at all, and make money doing it, then the incentive for the deception is exponential. If there are people who can, as a group of 2 or 5 or 10 or 200,000 as opposed to 300 million, if that 250,000 people can become extremely wealthy and very powerful in their ability to control others and manipulate society, then that 250,000 people will go to great lengths to deceive, including threatening those who would reveal their truth. And anyone who has a peek behind the curtain and then screams out, "Guess what's going on back here? I know I saw it. I saw it. I saw it. I took pictures. I made notes. I sent an email so that nobody could catch me, so that," yeah. Back in the day, and I'd recommend if you have a secret that you're not, a secret you're not sure is safe, here's my suggestion. Don't tell anybody about this. Write it down by hand on paper twice. Keep one copy in a safe place. Perhaps give it to a person that you trust to keep it secured in a safe place. The other copy, put it in the envelope. Go to the U.S. Postal Service. Tell them you want to send a certified, signature required envelope. They'll give you a nice little green card or a red one if it's registered, and you can fill it out and mail it to yourself. And when you get it, you sign for it, and you never open it again. What does that do? Well, it gives you about the strongest legal evidence as to the date and time and place that information came into your whereabouts. And you now have pretty solid written evidence. And because of the postage stamp on it and the canceled stamp, i.e. it ran through the machine, the post office has now verified that date in a federal record. And nobody can say, well, I think you made that up. Maybe you knew that after the fact. Maybe you knew that way in advance of the fact, and you're actually one of the suspects. See, this kind of evidence, this I've got receipts kind of evidence, is kind of like when you take your receipts to meet with the IRS auditor who's saying, your books look a little wonky to me. I just want to see that you actually spent the money you said you spent in the places that you spent it and that it's justified. And when you pull out that shoebox of receipts, and it's not just in your QuickBooks and it's not just in your CPA's report, but you actually have every receipt, it kind of changes things because you can prove what you conjectured. And now the real question becomes, do you have the guts, the cojones, the intestinal fortitude, the commitment to not what's convenient, not what the crowd wants you to say, not what the deceptive liars desire,